Loneliness is a feeling we've all experienced at some point in our lives. But in today's increasingly connected world, where we're just a click away from virtually anyone, why does it sometimes feel like we're more isolated than ever? The ancient Stoics wrestled with this same human struggle centuries ago, and their insights remain just as powerful today. As the philosopher Epictetus once said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." What if the key to overcoming loneliness and finding inner peace isn't about changing your circumstances, but about transforming the way you see yourself and the world around you? In this video, we'll explore how Stoic wisdom can guide us to cultivate resilience, build a deeper connection with ourselves, and discover a profound sense of inner harmony, no matter what life throws our way. Let's take this journey together. Loneliness is often seen as something that happens to us, a product of physical isolation or a lack of meaningful connections. We might think, "I feel lonely because I don't have enough friends," or "I feel this way because I'm not surrounded by people who truly understand me." But what if loneliness isn't entirely about who's around us or what we're lacking in our external environment? What if much of it comes from within, a reflection of how we perceive ourselves and our relationships with the world? The Stoics believed that this was often the case. They taught that loneliness, like many emotional states, stems not from our circumstances, but from the judgments we make about those circumstances. According to the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, men are disturbed not by things but by the views they take of them. Applying this to loneliness, it means that much of the pain we associate with being alone doesn't come from the simple fact of being physically by ourselves. It comes from the story we tell ourselves about what being alone means. Do we equate solitude with failure, thinking it makes us unworthy or unlovable? Do we believe we need constant validation, attention, or companionship to feel whole? These judgments, rather than the situation itself, often intensify our sense of isolation. Think about this. How often do we scroll through social media, surrounded by digital connections, and still feel utterly alone? That's because loneliness isn't just the absence of others. It's the absence of a connection that feels meaningful. And paradoxically, that sense of connection starts not with other people, but with ourselves. The Stoics remind us that we already have within us the resources to feel content and at peace, regardless of who is or isn't around us. Consider Marcus Aurelius, who wrote extensively about finding strength and tranquility, even while carrying the immense burden of being emperor. He reminded himself and us that the opinions or presence of others do not define our worth. Instead, it's our character, our virtues, and the way we navigate life's challenges that truly matter. In moments of solitude, Marcus turned inward, finding solace in his connection to nature, to reason, and to something greater than himself. His writings show us that it's possible to be alone without feeling lonely when we can shift our focus away from what we lack externally and toward the richness of our internal world. This isn't to say that seeking companionship or sharing our lives with others is wrong, far from it. Humans are social creatures by nature, and meaningful relationships are an essential part of a fulfilling life. But Stoicism teaches us that the root of loneliness isn't the absence of others. It's the false belief that we require their constant presence for our happiness. When we cling to the idea that we need validation, approval, or connection at all times, we give power to things outside our control. And for the Stoics, this is a surefire path to suffering. So how do we begin to change this mindset? It starts with recognizing our own self-sufficiency. The Stoics urge us to examine our thoughts and ask, are these beliefs about my loneliness really true? Why do I feel I can't be at peace on my own? By questioning these assumptions, we start to break free from the grip of false judgments. we begin to see that solitude can be an opportunity for reflection, growth, and self-discovery, a chance to reconnect with what truly matters. The next time you feel lonely, pause for a moment. Instead of reaching outward for distraction or reassurance, try turning inward. Reflect on what you truly need in this moment and whether it's something you can find within yourself. As the Stoics remind us, the path to inner peace begins not with changing what's outside of us, but with transforming the way we see and respond to our inner world. One of the most profound teachings of Stoicism is the concept of the dichotomy of control. At its core, this principle divides life into two categories: the things we can control and the things we cannot. It's simple in theory, but incredibly transformative when we apply it to our lives, especially when facing feelings of loneliness. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, expressed this idea beautifully when he said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." By learning to focus on what's within our power and letting go of what isn't, we can save ourselves from unnecessary suffering and find a greater sense of peace. But how does this apply to loneliness? Well, let's start by examining the external factors that often contribute to our feelings of isolation. Perhaps we feel lonely because someone we care about has distanced themselves, or because we don't have a large circle of friends. Maybe we've moved to a new city where we don't know anyone, or we're going through a period of life where we simply don't feel connected to others. While these situations can create discomfort, they all fall into the category of things we cannot fully control. We cannot force people to stay in our lives. We cannot dictate when others will reach out, nor can we completely shape the circumstances that life throws at us. What we can control, however, is how we respond to these situations. Instead of being consumed by frustration or despair over the things outside our influence, Stoicism urges us to focus on our own actions, thoughts, and choices. For example, if you've lost touch with a close friend, you can choose to reach out to them. That action is within your control, but their response is not. If no one responds to your efforts, how you interpret and handle that reality is entirely up to you. Will you let rejection define your self-worth, or will you cultivate a mindset that values your own efforts and resilience regardless of the outcome? Another way to apply the dichotomy of control is by re-examining our expectations. Sometimes loneliness arises because we expect others to fill certain emotional voids within us, voids that, in truth, only we can begin to address. If we constantly look outward for validation, companionship, or a sense of belonging, we give power to things we cannot control, other people's actions, opinions, and availability. But by shifting that focus inward and reflecting on what we can influence, our character, our mindset, our ability to create meaning in our lives, we start to loosen the grip of loneliness. Imagine a sailor caught in a storm at sea. The sailor cannot control the wind or the waves, but they can control how they adjust their sails. The Stoics teach us to be like that sailor, navigating the storms of life with calm and reason. When feelings of loneliness arise, instead of resisting or blaming external factors, we can adjust our inner compass. We can focus on strengthening our inner resources, cultivating gratitude for the moments of connection we do have, practicing self-compassion, or engaging in activities that bring purpose and joy to our lives. Take a moment to reflect on your own experience. How much of your loneliness is tied to things beyond your control? Is it because someone hasn't reached out, or because your circumstances aren't ideal? Now consider what's within your power. Could you take small actions to forge new connections? Could you reframe your solitude as an opportunity for personal growth rather than a limitation? These shifts in perspective, though often challenging, are entirely within your grasp. By embracing the Stoic principle of control and acceptance, we free ourselves from the weight of trying to change the unchangeable. Instead, we find strength in focusing on what we can influence: our actions, our attitude, and the way we choose to view the world. It's not about denying the reality of loneliness, but about meeting it with clarity and resilience. Some things are up to us and some things are not. The more we live by this truth, the closer we come to finding that inner peace the Stoics so often spoke of. Solitude is often misunderstood. Many of us see it as a gap that needs to be filled, as a sign of something missing in our lives, but the Stoics saw it differently. To them, solitude wasn't a problem to be solved, but a gift, a space where we could step away from the chaos of the world and reconnect with ourselves. They believed that solitude, when embraced properly, could be one of the most powerful tools for self-reflection and growth. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most influential Stoic thinkers, wrote, "People seek retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, or in the mountains." You too are inclined to desire such things, but this is entirely the trait of a base person when you can, at any moment, find such a retreat in yourself. His words remind us that the ultimate refuge isn't a physical place, but an inner state, a mindset we can access whenever we take a moment to pause and turn inward. This idea is profoundly empowering. It means that no matter where we are or how alone we may feel, we always have a sanctuary within ourselves. By cultivating this internal retreat, we learn to find peace not through external distractions, but through understanding and nurturing our inner world. Solitude, then, transforms from something to fear into a powerful ally, a chance to quiet the noise around us and explore who we truly are. When we sit with our thoughts in moments of solitude, we're given the opportunity to assess what's truly important in life. How often do we allow ourselves to ask, what kind of person do I want to be? What values am I living by? What am I grateful for at this very moment? In the busyness of daily life, these questions are often drowned out. But solitude allows us the mental space to confront them and to align ourselves with our deeper purpose. The Stoics understood that this kind of self-reflection is essential for personal growth. Without moments of solitude, we risk becoming too entangled in the expectations, judgments, and noise of the outside world. We may start to lose sight of our own values and priorities, allowing our identity to be shaped by others. But by stepping back, by spending time alone with our thoughts, we can strengthen our sense of self and become more grounded in what truly matters. Think about it like sharpening a blade. Just as a blade becomes dull with constant use and needs time away from cutting to be restored, our minds and spirits also need time away from the hustle of life to regain clarity and strength. Solitude offers that sharpening. It's a moment to refine our character, examine our feelings, and reconnect with the kind of person we aspire to be. If you've ever felt uncomfortable being alone, you're not alone in that feeling. Many of us find solitude difficult because it forces us to confront thoughts or emotions we might rather avoid. But the Stoics would encourage us to embrace this discomfort as part of the process. Rather than running from those emotions, they'd say, sit with them, understand them, use them as an opportunity to grow. In modern life, we often fill every moment of silence with distractions, scrolling through a screen, streaming endless content, or seeking constant interaction. But what if instead we embraced those moments of quiet? What if we allowed ourselves to truly be present with our own thoughts? Imagine the strength and peace we might cultivate if, like Marcus Aurelius suggested, we turned inward and found a retreat in ourselves. So the next time you find yourself alone, avoid reaching immediately for your phone or seeking some form of escape. Instead, take a breath and allow yourself to simply be asterisk. Reflect on what's on your mind, journal about your thoughts, or meditate on your values. These moments of solitude aren't empty, they're opportunities to grow wiser, more resilient, and more connected to your inner self. The Stoics believed that true peace comes not from avoiding solitude, but from embracing it as a chance to build a stronger inner foundation. When we reframe solitude as a tool for reflection and growth, we discover that we are never truly alone. We have everything we need within us to find clarity, purpose, and peace. The Stoics often turn to nature as a profound source of comfort, guidance, and perspective. To them, nature was not just the environment around us, it was a reflection of the greater order and interconnectedness of the universe. By observing and aligning with it, they believed we could find harmony and a sense of belonging that transcends the fleeting concerns of daily life. In fact, the Stoics often reminded themselves that we are not separate from nature, we are part of it. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he wrote, "All things are woven together, and the common bond is sacred. We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth." This idea of being deeply connected to something larger than ourselves offers a soothing antidote to feelings of loneliness. When we feel isolated, it's easy to spiral into the belief that we are separate from the rest of the world. We convince ourselves that we're cut off, that we don't belong, but the Stoics remind us that this couldn't be further from the truth. By reconnecting with the natural world, we're reminded of our place in the vast web of life, a place that is intrinsic and inextricable. There's a certain solace in knowing that, no matter what, we are always part of something much bigger than ourselves. Consider this: when you watch the waves rolling onto the shore, the leaves rustling in the wind, or the stars glimmering in the night sky, have you ever felt that quiet, calming sense of awe? That's the kind of perspective the Stoics encourage us to embrace. Nature has a way of putting things into context, helping us realize that many of the things we worry about, our fears of not being good enough, our feelings of isolation, are minuscule in the grand expanse of the cosmos. This realization isn't to make us feel small in a negative way. Rather, it's to remind us that we're a unique and irreplaceable thread in the vast tapestry of existence. So how can we practically incorporate this wisdom into our modern lives? After all, many of us spend the majority of our time indoors, surrounded by concrete buildings and glowing screens. The good news is that connecting with nature doesn't require a remote mountaintop or an untouched forest. It's something we can do wherever we are. Start small. Go for a walk in a nearby park, letting yourself fully notice the rhythm of your steps, the rustle of the trees, or the chirping of birds. If you don't have access to green spaces, even a moment spent watching the clouds drift by outside your window or tending to a small plant in your home can be surprisingly grounding. Another practice inspired by the Stoics is to reflect on the cycles and patterns of nature. They saw these patterns like the changing seasons or the rise and fall of the sun as a reminder of life's natural rhythms. When we feel disconnected or out of sync, stepping outside to observe these rhythms can realign us. For example, take time to mindfully watch a sunrise or sunset. Notice how, no matter how much is happening in your life, the sun continues its course, rising and setting with unbroken consistency. This simple act of observation can bring a sense of stability and perspective to even the most chaotic days. The Stoics also believed that connecting with nature could help us cultivate gratitude and humility. Seneca urged us to marvel at the world's beauty, saying, "We should take wandering outdoor walks so that the mind might be nourished and refreshed by the open air and deep breathing." In these moments, we realize that the world around us offers so much beauty, wisdom, and peace without asking for anything in return. Acknowledging this abundance can shift our focus from what we lack to what we already have, softening feelings of isolation and replacing them with appreciation. Ultimately, reconnecting with nature is about aligning ourselves with the flow of life. It's a reminder that, no matter how alone we may feel, we are always connected to the earth beneath us, to the sky above, and to the infinite unfolding of the universe. The Stoics understood this deeply, and by following their lead, we too can find comfort and clarity in the simple yet profound act of being present with the natural world. Try it today. Step outside, take a deep breath, and let nature remind you that you are never truly alone. One of the most common sources of loneliness is the relentless pursuit of external approval. We often tie our self-worth to how others perceive us, craving validation and reassurance as if those things define who we are. Yet the Stoics would argue that this mindset is a trap, an illusion that pulls us further away from true peace and contentment. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, warned against this when he said, "You will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of. You will never live if you are looking for the meaning of life in someone else." Seeking approval from others, according to Seneca, keeps us in a constant state of uncertainty and dependence, making us vulnerable to disappointment and feelings of isolation. Why is this pursuit such a problem? On the surface, it seems only natural to want others to like us or to feel validated by their praise. But the Stoics recognize that making external approval the foundation of our happiness leads to instability. Think about it, other people's opinions are completely outside of our control. One day we might receive compliments and admiration, and the next we could be met with criticism or indifference. If our sense of self-worth depends on something as unpredictable as the opinions of others, how can we ever feel secure and truly at peace? Seneca believed that true independence comes when we detach ourselves from this need for validation. He encouraged us to focus instead on living in alignment with our own values and principles. "What progress have I made?" he wrote. "I am beginning to be my own friend." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that the most reliable source of approval isn't external, it's internal. When we cultivate a strong relationship with ourselves, rooted in self-respect and self-awareness, we free ourselves from the endless chase for outside affirmation. But how do we put this into practice? How do we begin to loosen the grip of needing others' validation? A good starting point is to reflect on why we seek approval in the first place. Is it because we doubt our own worth and we think others' praise will make us feel whole? Is it because we fear rejection or judgment? Recognizing these deeper fears allows us to confront them. The Stoics teach us to examine our thoughts and challenge those that don't serve us. For example, the next time you catch yourself seeking someone's approval, ask yourself, why does this person's opinion matter so much to me? Will their words truly change who I am or what I stand for? Another practical exercise is to focus on what you can control. Instead of aiming to impress others, aim to live with integrity. Let your actions reflect your core values, whether that's kindness, honesty, or persistence, without worrying about whether others notice or applaud. The Stoics remind us that we cannot control how others react to our efforts, but we can control how we show up in the world. When we shift our focus from pleasing others to simply living in harmony with our own values, we start to build an unshakable sense of self. For example, imagine you've worked hard on a project, but it goes unnoticed by your peers or your boss. In the past, this might have left you feeling frustrated or unappreciated. But with a Stoic perspective, you can remind yourself that the value of your effort doesn't depend on recognition. What matters is that you acted with diligence and gave your best. This mindset allows you to find satisfaction from within, rather than relying on external praise to validate your work. Detaching from the need for validation doesn't mean we stop valuing relationships or feedback from others. The Stoics weren't advocating for complete isolation or indifference. They understood that humans are social creatures. However, they emphasized that our inner peace cannot rest on something as fleeting and unstable as another person's opinion. True contentment comes from within, from knowing that you are living a life that aligns with your values regardless of what others think. So, take a moment to reflect. How much of your energy is spent trying to win approval from others? What would it feel like to let go of that need and to trust in your own judgment instead? By embracing this Stoic principle, you can begin to free yourself from the illusion of external approval and discover a deeper, more lasting sense of self-worth. In the Stoic worldview, the key to a fulfilling and peaceful life is living in alignment with virtue. Virtue, according to the Stoics, isn't just about being morally good. It's about striving to be the best version of ourselves, guided by qualities like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. These timeless principles offer a roadmap for navigating life's challenges, and they can be especially powerful when confronting feelings of loneliness. Why? Because living according to virtue gives us a sense of purpose that is independent of external circumstances. When we focus on becoming virtuous, we anchor ourselves to something greater than fleeting emotions or the opinions of others. Let's begin with wisdom, the cornerstone of Stoic practice. Wisdom is the ability to discern what truly matters in life. It involves recognizing the difference between what we can control and what we cannot, and making choices that align with our values. When loneliness creeps in, wisdom helps us see that our worth is not diminished by the temporary absence of companionship. Instead of letting loneliness overwhelm us, we can use it as an opportunity to grow, to reflect, to learn, and to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. A simple way to cultivate wisdom in daily life is by journaling, a practice the Stoics themselves embraced. Take a few moments each day to reflect on your thoughts and actions. Are they aligned with your values? What lessons can you draw from your experiences, both good and bad? This practice not only sharpens your mind, but also helps you approach life with clarity and purpose. Courage, another central Stoic virtue, is equally important when dealing with loneliness. Courage isn't just about facing physical danger. It's about having the strength to confront uncomfortable emotions and take meaningful action even when it's difficult. Loneliness often tempts us to retreat, to withdraw into ourselves, or to settle for shallow connections out of fear of rejection. But practicing courage means stepping out of our comfort zone. It might mean starting a conversation with someone new, reaching out to an old friend, or even embracing solitude with an open heart rather than resisting it. Courage is the willingness to face life as it is, not as we wish it to be, and to act in ways that align with our highest ideals despite our fears. Justice for the Stoics is about treating others and ourselves with fairness and respect. It's the principle that reminds us we are part of a larger human community and that our actions have the power to contribute to the greater good. When loneliness strikes, it can sometimes make us overly self-focused, consumed with our own pain. But justice encourages us to look outward and ask, how can I serve others? How can I contribute to the well-being of those around me? By shifting our attention to acts of kindness, generosity, and fairness, we not only strengthen our bonds with others but also diminish the hold loneliness has on us. Something as simple as volunteering, helping a neighbor, or offering a kind word to a stranger can remind us of our interconnectedness and provide a sense of purpose. Finally, self-discipline ties all these virtues together. It's the ability to resist fleeting impulses and remain committed to the pursuit of a virtuous life. Loneliness can sometimes lead us to seek instant gratification, overindulging in distractions or chasing relationships that don't truly serve us. Self-discipline helps us stay grounded, reminding us to act in alignment with our values rather than giving in to quick fixes. For instance, instead of numbing loneliness with endless scrolling or avoiding deeper issues, self-discipline might guide us to spend that time cultivating a skill, engaging in meaningful reflection, or reaching out to someone in a way that fosters genuine connection. Living according to virtue doesn't mean we'll never feel lonely again, but it does mean that when loneliness arises, we'll have tools to face it with strength and wisdom. By aligning our lives with principles like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, we create a sense of purpose that no external circumstance can take away. So, as you move through your day, ask yourself, how can I show wisdom in my decisions? How can I act with courage when challenges arise? How can I practice justice in my interactions with others? And how can I use self-discipline to stay true to my values? With these virtues as your guide, you'll find that the path to inner peace starts to unfold before you. Gratitude is one of the most transformative tools the Stoics used to shift their perspective and cultivate contentment. In a world filled with uncertainty and challenges, they believed that focusing on what we already have rather than what we lack is the key to achieving inner peace. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, often reminded himself to appreciate life's blessings, no matter how small. He wrote, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you do not have, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess, and then thankfully remember how you would crave them if they were not yours." This powerful practice of looking inward and recognizing the abundance already present in our lives is a cornerstone of Stoic wisdom, and it's just as relevant today as it was in ancient Rome. When we feel lonely or dissatisfied, it's tempting to fixate on what's missing. We might dwell on the relationships we don't have, the circumstances we wish were different, or the things we think would make us happier. But the Stoics teach us to redirect this energy. Gratitude shifts our focus from scarcity to abundance, revealing the richness of the present moment. Instead of concentrating on what we lack, we start to see the gifts we already possess, whether it's our health, the beauty of nature, or the simple fact that we've been given another day to grow and learn. Practicing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring life's difficulties or pretending everything is perfect. The Stoics were deeply aware of life's hardships, but they viewed gratitude as an anchor, something that steadied them in the face of adversity. When we take time to acknowledge and appreciate the good in our lives, it doesn't make the challenges disappear, but it does help us build resilience and a more balanced perspective. Gratitude reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there is light to be found. One practical way to incorporate gratitude into your daily life is through journaling, a practice Marcus Aurelius himself used extensively. At the end of each day, take a few moments to write down a few things you're grateful for. These don't have to be grand or life-changing. In fact, some of the most powerful moments of gratitude come from the simplest observations. Maybe it's the warmth of the sun on your face during a morning walk, the laughter of a loved one, or even the quiet satisfaction of completing a task. By making this a daily ritual, you start training your mind to notice and appreciate these moments more naturally throughout the day. If journaling isn't your style, consider incorporating gratitude into a mindfulness practice. Set aside a few minutes each morning to reflect on what you're thankful for. Close your eyes and focus on your breath, and as you do, think about 3 things that bring you joy or add value to your life. These could be people, experiences, or even opportunities for growth. The goal is to pause and truly feel that sense of appreciation, allowing it to ground you as you move through your day. The beauty of gratitude is that it often creates a ripple effect. When we shift our perspective to focus on the blessings in our lives, we become more aware of the kindness around us and more inclined to share that kindness with others. A simple thank you or an act of generosity can create a connection that reminds us of the interconnectedness of humanity, a connection that combats feelings of loneliness and fosters a deeper sense of belonging. By practicing gratitude, we align ourselves with the Stoic principle of living in harmony with the present moment. As Marcus Aurelius so wisely observed, much of our suffering comes from wanting things to be other than they are. But when we pause to appreciate what we already have, we begin to see that life is full of gifts waiting to be noticed. Gratitude isn't just a practice, it's a mindset, and one that can transform the way we experience the world. So tonight or tomorrow morning, take a moment to reflect. What are you thankful for today? You might be surprised at how much you already have to cherish. The Stoics placed a profound emphasis on the concept of autarky, or self-sufficiency. At its heart, this ideal isn't about isolating ourselves or rejecting the company of others. It's about recognizing that true strength and peace come from within. The more we cultivate resilience and emotional independence, the less we rely on external circumstances, people, possessions, or even praise to define our sense of self-worth or happiness. For the Stoics, self-sufficiency was the key to freedom. Freedom from unhealthy attachments, from the fear of being alone, and from the anguish of wanting something or someone that is ultimately outside of our control. This might sound counterintuitive at first, especially since humans are naturally social beings. But the Stoics didn't suggest we should avoid relationships or shun others. Instead, they believed that by becoming emotionally self-sufficient, we could approach relationships and life in general with greater clarity, balance, and purpose. When we no longer rely on others to provide us with a sense of completeness, we're better able to form meaningful connections based on mutual respect and shared values rather than on need or dependency. So, how does cultivating self-sufficiency help reduce feelings of loneliness? At its core, loneliness often arises when we feel a void, when we believe that something external is missing in our lives. We tell ourselves, "I'll feel better when I have a partner," or "I wouldn't feel this way if my friends paid more attention to me." But these thoughts put our happiness and sense of belonging in the hands of others, leaving us vulnerable to disappointment and frustration. The Stoics teach us to turn inward instead, to develop our internal resources so that we can stand strong no matter what is happening in the world around us. One powerful way to cultivate self-sufficiency is by learning to find fulfillment in your own actions and character. Instead of seeking external validation, focus on living according to your values, whether that's kindness, honesty, perseverance, or any other virtue you hold dear. For example, let's say you're dealing with a difficult relationship. Perhaps someone close to you has been distant or unkind, and it's leaving you feeling hurt and lonely. The Stoic approach wouldn't be to suppress your emotions or pretend the situation doesn't matter. Instead, they would encourage you to focus on what is within your control, your own actions and response. Can you extend kindness or patience toward this person without expecting anything in return? Can you find strength in knowing that you've acted in line with your values regardless of how they respond? By shifting your focus from what you lack to how you can grow, you take back your power and cultivate a sense of inner resilience. In modern life, this practice might look like engaging in activities that boost your sense of self-reliance and confidence. Think of a time when you tackled a challenge on your own, whether it was learning a new skill, accomplishing a difficult task, or solving a problem without outside help. Those moments remind us that we're capable, resourceful, and whole, even when we're not leaning on others. Self-sufficiency doesn't mean rejecting help when it's needed, but it does mean trusting in your ability to navigate life's ups and downs. Another practical way to embrace the Stoic ideal of self-sufficiency is to cultivate hobbies or interests that bring you joy and fulfillment independently of others. Whether it's painting, gardening, journaling, or even exercising, these pursuits allow you to connect with your inner self and nurture a sense of individuality. They remind you that your happiness isn't entirely tied to social interactions or external approval. It can come from the quiet satisfaction of doing something meaningful for yourself. Ultimately, the Stoic ideal of self-sufficiency is about building a solid foundation within yourself, a foundation that can weather the storms of life. When you cultivate emotional independence, you reduce the power that loneliness has over you. You begin to see solitude not as a burden, but as an opportunity to grow stronger and more connected to your true self. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca aptly put it, the greatest wealth is a poverty of desires, By desiring less from the external world and relying more on the strength of our inner world, we discover a peace and contentment that no circumstance and no sense of loneliness can take away. The Stoics had a profoundly different way of viewing relationships, one that stands in stark contrast to how many of us approach them today. In modern life, relationships are often seen as a solution to loneliness or as a way to feel complete. We look to others for validation, love, and a sense of belonging, believing that their presence will fill a void within us, but the Stoics would challenge this mindset. They saw relationships not as a means of escape or self-worth, but as opportunities for mutual growth, a way for two individuals to come together and support one another in the pursuit of virtue. For the Stoics, relationships, whether they were friendships, romantic partnerships, or familial bonds, were meant to enrich our lives by helping us grow into better, wiser, and more virtuous people. They weren't about extracting happiness or fulfillment from the other person. Instead, they were about collaboration, working alongside each other to live with integrity, wisdom, courage, and kindness. When we approach relationships this way, we're no longer fixated on what the other person can do for us, but instead on how we can grow together and bring out the best in one another. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply, "You are a citizen of the universe and a part of it. Act accordingly." To the Stoics, our relationships are just one part of a much larger interconnected whole. They teach us how to cooperate, how to share, and how to contribute to the greater good. But this only works when we approach those relationships with the right mindset, not as sources of validation or dependency, but as partnerships rooted in shared values and mutual respect. Let's take an example. Imagine you're feeling lonely and you reach out to a friend. If your only goal is to soothe your loneliness, you might feel disappointed if the interaction doesn't go as planned. Maybe they don't respond quickly or the conversation feels superficial. But if instead you approach this same interaction as an opportunity for connection and mutual support, the dynamic changes. Instead of asking, "What can I get from this person?" you ask, "How can I bring value to this relationship?" This might mean offering a listening ear, sharing a moment of laughter, or simply being present. By reframing the intention behind the relationship, you shift the focus from neediness to meaningful engagement. This perspective is liberating in many ways. When we stop relying on relationships to fix our loneliness or make us whole, we free ourselves and others from unrealistic expectations. Relationships are no longer about filling a gap, but about building something meaningful. This doesn't mean relationships aren't important. On the contrary, they're vital. But their importance lies in the growth, connection, and shared purpose they can bring, not in their ability to validate us or fix what feels broken inside. To put this into practice, start by asking yourself a simple but powerful question. How can I bring more meaning to the connections I already have? Reflect on your relationships and consider what you're contributing. Are you showing up as your best self? Are you offering kindness, patience, or understanding? Or are you more focused on what you're not receiving? Shifting your perspective in this way allows you to approach relationships with generosity and a genuine desire to grow alongside others. Another step is to celebrate the relationships that already exist in your life, rather than fixating on what might be missing. Take a moment to think about the people who have been there for you, their support, their shared moments of joy, or even the lessons they've taught you through challenging times. When you focus on gratitude for what you have, rather than longing for what you don't, you start to see your connections in a new light. Ultimately, the Stoics remind us that relationships are most fulfilling when they're rooted in mutual growth and partnership in virtue. They're not about fixing loneliness or proving our worth, but about enriching each other's lives through shared values and the pursuit of meaning. So the next time you engage with a friend, family member, or partner, ask yourself, How can we grow together? How can I bring more depth, kindness, and purpose to this connection? By adopting this mindset, you'll find that relationships become less about filling a void and more about discovering the beauty of what it means to grow and thrive together. Have you ever noticed how often loneliness is tied to thoughts that pull us away from the present moment? We dwell on the past, revisiting moments of regret, loss, or connections that have faded. Or we project into the future, imagining scenarios where we might remain isolated, unloved, or misunderstood. These thoughts, while natural, can amplify feelings of loneliness because they focus on what we cannot change or what hasn't yet happened, leaving us stuck in a loop of longing and fear. The Stoics, however, offered a powerful antidote to this mental trap: the practice of mindfulness and living fully in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations often reminded himself to return to the here and now where life is truly lived. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." This simple yet profound instruction reflects the Stoic belief that peace and clarity come from focusing on what is in front of us right now, not what was or what might be. When we anchor ourselves in the present moment, we strip away the unnecessary weight of regret and anxiety, allowing us to see life more clearly and engage with it more fully. But how does this help with loneliness? When we're consumed by thoughts of the past or future, we often overlook the moments of connection and beauty that already exist around us. We become so caught up in what we wish were different that we miss the small, meaningful experiences that can bring a sense of fulfillment and presence. By practicing mindfulness, we train ourselves to notice these moments, to see the richness of life as it unfolds, even in solitude. One practical way to develop this skill is through mindful breathing, a practice that brings our attention back to the present by focusing on something constant and grounding: the breath. Find a quiet moment to sit and simply observe your breath as it flows in and out. Notice the sensation of air entering your nostrils, filling your lungs, and leaving your body. Each time your mind starts to wander, whether to memories of the past or worries about the future, gently guide it back to your breath. This simple exercise, though small, can have a profound effect on quieting the mental noise that often accompanies loneliness and helps you reconnect with the here and now. Another powerful practice is meditative reflection, something Marcus Aurelius himself often engaged in. Take time to reflect on the present moment with curiosity and gratitude. You might ask yourself, what is good about this moment right now? Perhaps it's the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of birds outside your window, or the sense of calm in simply pausing to breathe. These reflections help reframe your perspective, reminding you that even in moments of solitude, there is much to appreciate and experience in the present. The beauty of mindfulness lies in its accessibility. You don't need a specific setting or schedule to practice it. Mindfulness can happen anywhere at any time. If you're walking outside, notice the rhythm of your steps, the colors of the trees, or the way the air feels against your skin. If you're eating, savor each bite fully instead of rushing through the meal. These small acts of presence not only ground you in the moment, but also help reduce the pull of loneliness by showing you that life is happening now, not in the past or the imagined future. One of Marcus Aurelius's most enduring lessons is this: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Loneliness often feels like an external force pressing down on us, but the Stoics invite us to see it differently. They remind us that our experience of loneliness is shaped largely by how we think about it. By practicing mindfulness and returning to the present, we reclaim that power over our minds. We realize that while we cannot always control external circumstances, we can choose how we respond to them, and that choice begins in the present moment. So the next time loneliness begins to creep in, pause, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what is here right now that I can appreciate? What can I notice in this moment? These questions, small yet profound, shift your focus from absence to presence. They help you see that the present moment, no matter how simple, holds more peace and possibility than we often realize. The Stoics understood something profound about the human condition. We are not isolated beings, but parts of a greater whole. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on this idea in his meditations, writing, "We are all made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another is contrary to nature." This teaching invites us to see ourselves not as separate islands, but as interconnected threads in the vast fabric of humanity. Recognizing this truth can be a powerful antidote to loneliness, offering a sense of belonging that goes far deeper than surface-level connections. At its core, this Stoic principle reminds us that each of us has a role to play in the larger community of humanity. Just as the individual parts of the body work together for the health of the whole, so too should humans cooperate and support one another. When we fully embrace this idea, we see that we are never truly alone. Even in moments of solitude, we remain part of something larger, a shared human experience that spans across time and geography. The joys, struggles, and challenges we face are not unique to us. They are part of what it means to be human, and in this shared experience there is a profound sense of unity. Think about it this way: every person you encounter is, in some way, facing their own battles. The colleague at work, the stranger passing you on the street, even the friend who seems to have it all together. Each of them experiences fears, hopes, and moments of loneliness just like you. Recognizing this interconnectedness can foster empathy and compassion, not only for others but also for ourselves. When we understand that loneliness is a universal part of the human experience, it feels less isolating. Instead, it becomes something that links us to every other person who has ever lived, a reminder that we are not alone in our struggles. This perspective shifts how we see our place in the world. Rather than viewing ourselves as separate and disconnected, we start to see ourselves as contributors to the greater good. Every small act of kindness, every moment of understanding we extend to others, strengthens the bonds of this human community. Imagine how different the world would feel if, instead of focusing solely on what separates us, we embraced what unites us, a shared humanity in which we are all deeply interconnected. Practicing this mindset doesn't require grand gestures. It can start with something as simple as acknowledging the humanity in others. The next time you're walking through a crowded space or feeling disconnected, take a moment to remind yourself, every person here is part of the same human story as I am. Even small actions like offering a smile, a kind word, or a moment of patience create ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. These gestures not only help others feel seen and valued, but also reinforce our own sense of connection. Marcus Aurelius also emphasized that understanding this interconnectedness can help us rise above petty divisions and judgments. When we see ourselves as part of a greater whole, the small grievances and conflicts that often consume us lose their weight. We realize that cooperation and compassion are in our nature, and that by embracing them, we align ourselves with the very essence of what it means to be human. Reflecting on this, he wrote, "What benefits the whole cannot harm the part." In other words, by contributing to the well-being of others, we inevitably enrich our own lives. So how can recognizing the community of humanity help us feel less isolated? It starts with shifting our focus. Rather than dwelling on what separates us, our differences, disagreements, or the sense that we are somehow apart from others, we turn our attention to what connects us. We begin to see that no matter where we are or what we're going through, we are part of a shared human journey, and in that shared journey, there is a sense of belonging that no circumstance can take away. The next time you feel alone or disconnected, try this. Reflect on the people who have walked similar paths before you and those who are walking alongside you now. Think about the countless acts of kindness and cooperation happening all around the world every day. These might be small, unnoticed moments, but they are the threads that hold the human community together. By recognizing this interconnectedness, we not only feel less isolated, we also find meaning and purpose in contributing to the larger whole. Because in the end, as the Stoics taught, we are all in this together. Loneliness often feels overwhelming, not because of our circumstances, but because of the destructive thoughts that accompany it. These are the thoughts that whisper, "You're alone because you're not good enough," or "No one cares about you." While these inner voices may feel powerful in the moment, the Stoics remind us that they are simply asterisk thoughts, asterisk temporary mental activities, not absolute truths. The real harm doesn't come from the thoughts themselves, but from our decision to accept and dwell on them. This is where Stoicism offers us invaluable guidance by teaching us how to detach from these harmful narratives and regain control over our emotional responses. Epictetus, one of the most practical Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them." In other words, it's not the fact that you're spending Friday night alone or that you haven't heard from a friend in a while that causes distress. It's the meaning you assign to those events. You might think, "This means I'm unlovable," or "I'll always feel this way," and those interpretations magnify the pain of loneliness. But what if you could challenge those judgments? What if you could take a step back, observe your thoughts without attaching to them, and decide how to respond? This is the core of Stoic emotional detachment. Detachment doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or ignoring them. Instead, it's about recognizing that you are not your thoughts. You simply experience them. Imagine sitting by a river, watching the water flow past. The thoughts in your mind are like leaves floating downstream. You don't have to grab onto every leaf or follow it. You can simply observe it as it passes. This is the mindset the Stoics encourage us to adopt when dealing with negative or self-critical thoughts. Instead of engaging with them or letting them spiral out of control, we practice stepping back and seeing them for what they are: fleeting, often irrational, and within our power to dismiss. One way to develop this detachment is through cognitive discipline, a skill the Stoics value deeply. Start by becoming aware of your inner critic, the voice that amplifies feelings of loneliness or self-doubt. When you notice these thoughts arise, pause and examine them. Ask yourself, is this thought based on facts, or is it just a story I'm telling myself? Does thinking this way serve me, or is it only making me feel worse? By questioning your thoughts, you weaken their grip and create space for more rational, constructive perspectives. Another Stoic practice is reframing. Instead of seeing solitude as a punishment, can you view it as an opportunity for growth? Instead of thinking, "No one wants to spend time with me," can you reframe it as, "This is a chance to connect with myself and strengthen my independence"? Reframing allows you to take control of how you interpret events, transforming challenges into opportunities for reflection and resilience. Meditation and mindfulness are also powerful tools for quieting the inner critic. The Stoics didn't use these exact terms, but they often practiced forms of meditative reflection to center their thoughts. For example, you could take a few minutes each day to sit quietly, focus on your breathing, and observe your thoughts without judgment. This practice helps you develop the skill of noticing your thoughts without becoming entangled in them, an essential step toward emotional detachment. Another exercise inspired by Epictetus is to remind yourself of the difference between what is within your control and what is not. You cannot control whether someone calls or texts you. You cannot control whether others understand or appreciate you. but you can control how you respond to these situations. You can choose to respond with patience, self-compassion, and a commitment to your own well-being, rather than allowing destructive thoughts to dictate your emotions. Detachment from destructive thoughts is not about avoiding loneliness, it's about changing how you experience it. When you stop identifying with your inner critic and start questioning its narrative, you reclaim your power. You remember that you are more than your fleeting thoughts, and that your worth is not determined by the temporary judgments of your mind. As the Stoics remind us, the path to peace begins not by changing the external world, but by mastering the world within. With practice, you can quiet the inner critic and find strength and clarity in even the loneliest of moments. A sense of purpose, or telos asterisk as the Stoics called it, lies at the very heart of their philosophy. To the Stoics, purpose wasn't just a lofty ideal, it was the guiding force that gave life meaning. Without it, they believed, we would drift aimlessly, vulnerable to feelings of despair, isolation, and loneliness. Having a clear purpose, a reason to wake up each day, grounds us, giving us a sense of direction even in difficult times. It connects us not only to ourselves but also to the world around us, reminding us that our actions matter, that we have something meaningful to contribute. So how does purpose counteract loneliness? Think of loneliness as a void, a hollow space created by the absence of connection, whether to others, to ourselves, or to something greater. Purpose fills that space. It gives us a reason to keep moving forward, a sense of belonging to the larger story of life. When we focus our energy on meaningful pursuits, we shift our attention away from what we lack and toward what we can give, do, or become. The Stoics believed that loneliness often stems from focusing too much on ourselves, our fears, our needs, our pain. But when we root ourselves in purpose, we transcend that inward spiral and connect with something beyond us. But what does living with purpose look like? For the Stoics, purpose didn't mean chasing grand accomplishments or waiting for some monumental calling. It simply meant aligning your life and actions with your values. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, found purpose in his role as a servant of the greater good. Despite his immense responsibilities as emperor, he saw his purpose not in his title or power, but in his ability to act justly, wisely, and with kindness. At dawn, he wrote, "When you have trouble getting out of bed, remind yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of Stoic purpose. It's not about extraordinary achievements, but about fulfilling our role in life, no matter how small it may seem. So how can we cultivate a sense of purpose in our own lives? One way is by setting small, meaningful goals. Sometimes we think purpose has to be something grand, starting a business, traveling the world, or creating a legacy. But the Stoics remind us that purpose can be found in everyday actions. It might be as simple as helping a colleague at work, being present for a loved one, or even taking care of your own well-being. Each small step toward living in alignment with your values builds a sense of progress and fulfillment. Another powerful way to cultivate purpose is through service to others. The Stoics believed that we are deeply interconnected and that part of our purpose is to contribute to the greater good. Serving others not only reminds us of this connection, but also shifts our focus away from loneliness and toward action. Imagine volunteering at a local shelter, offering mentorship, or even sharing a kind word with someone who's struggling. These acts of service, though small, ripple outward and create meaning not just for the people we help, but for ourselves as well. As Seneca said, no one can live happily who has regard only for themselves and turns everything to their own purposes. You must live for your neighbor if you would live for yourself. If you're unsure of your purpose, the Stoics would advise you to start by reflecting on your values. What matters most to you? Is it kindness, growth, Just as contribution, once you've identified those values, ask yourself what small actions you can take each day to live them out. Purpose doesn't have to be discovered all at once. It's something you build one decision at a time. Ultimately, the Stoics understood that purpose isn't just about finding meaning, it's about creating it through intentional, value-driven action. When we live with purpose, we align ourselves with something greater than our momentary emotions or circumstances. This alignment helps us weather feelings of loneliness and aimlessness, giving us a steady compass to guide us through life. So ask yourself, what small yet meaningful steps can you take today to live with purpose? In answering that question, you might just find the connection, direction, and fulfillment you've been searching for. The practice of reflection is one of the most powerful tools the Stoics embraced to cultivate clarity, resilience, and inner peace. They believed that by regularly examining their thoughts, emotions, and actions, they could align more closely with their values and correct the course of their lives when needed. Reflection wasn't just an occasional activity for the Stoics, it was a cornerstone of their philosophy, a daily habit that grounded them amidst the chaos of life. And it's a habit that's just as valuable for us today, especially when feelings of loneliness or uncertainty arise. Seneca, one of the most practical Stoic thinkers, advocated strongly for the habit of self-examination. He once wrote, "We should every night call ourselves to an account. What infirmity have I mastered today? What passions opposed? What temptation resisted? What virtue acquired?" This nightly practice of looking inward was, for Seneca, a way to measure progress and ensure that he lived each day with purpose and integrity. Reflection wasn't about judgment or self-criticism, it was about growth. By asking himself these questions, Seneca could identify areas where he faltered, celebrate moments where he succeeded, and prepare himself to navigate tomorrow with greater wisdom. How can we adopt this Stoic practice of reflection in modern life? One of the most effective ways to do this is through journaling. Taking even just a few minutes each day to write down your thoughts can bring incredible clarity to your emotions, behavior, and decisions. Journaling allows you to step back and observe your inner world without the noise of daily distractions. It helps you identify patterns in your thoughts like recurring fears or insecurities and gives you the space to question them. For example, if you felt lonely throughout the day, journaling can help you unpack why. Was it because of external circumstances, or was it tied to a specific belief or expectation? By writing it down, you turn abstract feelings into something tangible, something you can understand and address. To get started, consider using Seneca's nightly questions as prompts for self-reflection. You might ask yourself, what did I do well today? What could I have done better? Did I act in alignment with my values? These questions not only provide a clear structure for reflection, but also help you track your progress over time. You may begin to notice that with each passing day, you're developing more patience, courage, or self-awareness, all markers of the personal growth the Stoics valued deeply. Another approach to reflection is self-inquiry. This involves asking yourself open-ended questions that encourage deeper insight into your emotions and needs. For example, if you're feeling overwhelmed by loneliness, you might ask, what am I truly longing for right now? Is it connection, or is it a sense of purpose? How can I meet that need in a healthy and fulfilling way? Self-inquiry isn't about finding immediate answers, it's about exploring your inner landscape with curiosity and kindness. The questions themselves guide you toward greater understanding, helping you uncover truths that might otherwise remain hidden. What makes reflection so transformative is its ability to shift us from living reactively to living intentionally. Without reflection, it's easy to go through life on autopilot, driven by fleeting emotions or external circumstances. But with reflection, we pause. We take the time to ask, am I living the life I want to live? Am I making choices that align with my values? This pause creates a moment of clarity, a space where we can choose our response to life rather than being swept away by it. And in that space, we find freedom. In times of loneliness, the practice of reflection offers a path back to ourselves. It reminds us that even when we feel isolated, we have the ability to nurture our inner world, to grow in self-awareness, and to act with intention. As Seneca taught, he who is a friend to himself is never alone. Through journaling and self-inquiry, we strengthen that friendship with ourselves, finding comfort and clarity within. So tonight, before the day comes to an end, take a moment to pause. Open a notebook or simply sit quietly and reflect. What did today teach you? What emotions arose, and what do they reveal about your needs and desires? In the practice of reflection, you may just discover the wisdom and peace you've been seeking all along. Adversity often feels like a weight, a burden we carry that slows us down and leaves us wondering, why me? But the Stoics saw adversity differently. To them, challenges, including loneliness, were not obstacles to avoid but opportunities to embrace. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, likened hardship to the training of an athlete. He said, "What then does it mean to be properly educated? It means learning to apply your natural capacities to the events of life. Just as wood is the test of a carpenter and bronze of a sculptor, so too are events the test of a human being." In other words, adversity is not here to defeat us. It is here to shape us, to refine our character, and to teach us strength. Let's think of loneliness through this lens. Imagine a blacksmith working at their forge, hammering a piece of raw metal. The heat and pressure might seem destructive at first, but they're necessary for transforming the metal into something stronger, more useful, and more beautiful. In much the same way, feelings of loneliness, while uncomfortable, can be the forge that tempers our resilience, our self-awareness, and our ability to connect with the world on a deeper level. Loneliness, when approached with a Stoic mindset, becomes not a punishment but a teacher. The Stoics believed that every challenge in life, no matter how painful, has the potential to help us grow. Seneca, in particular, reflected on adversity as a gift that forces us to confront parts of ourselves we might otherwise ignore. He wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." When we face loneliness, we're given the opportunity to turn inward, to ask ourselves questions like, what am I learning from this experience? What virtues can I cultivate in this moment? Patience, gratitude, self-reliance. Each moment of discomfort is a chance to practice these virtues, to build a foundation of strength that will serve us not just now but for the rest of our lives. For example, consider the virtue of resilience. Loneliness, as painful as it is, teaches us how to endure. It shows us that we can weather emotional storms and come out stronger on the other side. Each time we sit with our feelings of isolation rather than running from them, we strengthen our ability to face life's challenges with courage and grace. Similarly, loneliness can teach us self-awareness. In those quiet moments of solitude, we come to understand ourselves better, our fears, our desires, and the stories we tell ourselves. This self-awareness is the first step toward personal growth and finding deeper connections with others. Let's look at a concrete example. Imagine someone who has recently moved to a new city, far from friends and family, and they find themselves feeling deeply lonely. At first, this loneliness feels unbearable, a constant ache, but instead of seeing it as an enemy, they begin to view it as an opportunity. They take this time to explore new interests, perhaps joining a local group or volunteering, and in doing so, they discover strengths they didn't know they had: resilience in unfamiliar situations, the courage to introduce themselves to strangers, and the ability to create new connections. What once felt like an isolating experience becomes a chapter of growth and self-discovery. It's important to note that the Stoics didn't glorify suffering for its own sake. They didn't suggest that we should seek out pain or deny our emotions. Instead, they taught us to see challenges as a fact of life, something we can use, rather than something we need to fear. Adversity, like fire, has the power to consume or to purify. The choice of how we let it affect us lies in how we respond. So the next time you find yourself in the grip of loneliness, try reframing it. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger?" Remember Epictetus's wisdom: adversity is the test of a human being. And with each test we face, we are given a chance to grow into the strongest, most resilient version of ourselves. In the end, it is through these challenges that we discover what we're truly capable of, and that realization is one of the greatest gifts of all. One of the biggest traps we fall into when searching for fulfillment is the pursuit of material possessions. We're bombarded daily with messages that tell us we'll feel happier, more accepted, or more complete if we just buy that new gadget, upgrade to the latest car, or fill our homes with trendy decor. But have you ever noticed that the more we accumulate, the less satisfied we tend to feel? The Stoics saw this clearly. They understood that materialism, the relentless desire for more, doesn't bring us closer to happiness. Rather, it often isolates us further, deepening our feelings of loneliness and disconnect. They believed that true contentment lies not in having more, but in needing less. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it succinctly: "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." At its heart, materialism isn't just about possessions, it's a mindset. It's the belief that our worth is tied to what we own, that acquiring more will fill an emotional void, and that happiness is something to be purchased rather than cultivated internally. The problem is, this mindset is insatiable. No matter how much we obtain, the craving for more never truly goes away. And when our sense of self-worth is tied to possessions, we end up feeling disconnected not only from others but also from ourselves. Materialism can also feed loneliness in more subtle ways. Think about how much time and energy is often spent chasing, acquiring, and maintaining material things. These pursuits can take us away from the relationships and experiences that truly matter. Instead of nurturing connections with friends or family, we may find ourselves consumed with status, appearances, or the latest trends, leaving us feeling isolated in spite of our material abundance. The Stoics remind us that this endless cycle is not where fulfillment lies. Instead, they encourage us to embrace simplicity, a life focused on meaning and virtue rather than possessions. So how do we begin to detach from materialism and live more simply? A good starting point is shifting our perspective. Ask yourself, what truly brings me joy? Is it the latest gadget, or is it shared moments with loved ones? Is it the constant pursuit of a new purchase, or is it the peace that comes from appreciating what I already have? When we take the time to reflect on what genuinely enriches our lives, we often realize that it has nothing to do with material things. One practical step is to regularly declutter, not just your physical space, but also your mental and emotional attachment to possessions. Go through your belongings and ask yourself, does this truly add value to my life, or is it just taking up space? Letting go of what no longer serves us can be incredibly liberating. It creates room not just for physical space, but also for clarity and focus on what matters most. Another approach is to practice gratitude for the things you already have. The Stoics were big proponents of this. Instead of constantly yearning for more, take a moment each day to reflect on what you're grateful for. It could be something as simple as a roof over your head, the food on your plate, or the relationships you cherish. Gratitude shifts our attention away from scarcity and longing, and toward abundance and contentment. Finally, consider adopting a mindset of intentionality when it comes to consuming. The next time you're tempted to buy something new, pause and ask yourself, do I truly need this? Will this add lasting value to my life, or is it a fleeting one? By being more deliberate in our choices, we can focus our resources, time, energy, and money on what aligns with our deeper values. Living simply doesn't mean rejecting all possessions or comfort. It means being mindful of what we allow into our lives and ensuring that our choices reflect what genuinely matters. As the Stoics remind us, happiness doesn't come from accumulating more. It comes from needing less and appreciating what we already have. In simplicity, we find freedom from the endless chase, freedom from comparison, and freedom to connect with ourselves and the world in a more profound way. The Stoics believed that one of the most profound ways to overcome loneliness is through service to others. When we feel disconnected or isolated, it's easy to turn inward, focusing solely on our own struggles and needs. But paradoxically, the Stoics taught that the best way to transcend these feelings is not by dwelling on ourselves, but by looking outward, by contributing to the well-being of others and connecting through compassion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Man is made for deeds of kindness, and whenever he acts with charity or even fails to act, he goes against what he was made for." In other words, we are inherently social beings designed to cooperate, share, and uplift one another. Acts of kindness aren't just a moral imperative, they're deeply aligned with our nature. Philanthropy doesn't have to involve grand gestures or vast wealth. It's not about how much you give, but about the intention behind your actions. Even small, everyday acts of service can foster a sense of connection and purpose that help alleviate loneliness. When we help others, we remind ourselves that we are part of something greater, part of a shared human experience where every act of kindness strengthens the bonds between us. This perspective shifts our focus from isolation to inclusivity, from scarcity to abundance. It reinforces the Stoic idea that true fulfillment comes not from what we take for ourselves, but from what we give to others. So, what does this look like in practice? Consider the countless opportunities we encounter every day to perform small yet meaningful acts of kindness. Helping a neighbor carry their groceries, offering a sincere compliment to a coworker, or reaching out to someone you know who may be struggling emotionally. These are all simple yet powerful ways to practice service. Even a smile or a kind word to a stranger can create a moment of connection that brightens both your day and theirs. These small gestures may feel insignificant in the moment, but they carry an incredible ripple effect, fostering goodwill and mutual understanding. Volunteering is another powerful expression of service. Whether it's dedicating an hour a week to a local food bank, mentoring a young student, or joining a community cleanup effort, these acts remind us of our shared humanity. They allow us to step outside of our own struggles and contribute to something bigger. In doing so, we not only make a tangible difference in others' lives, but also gain a renewed sense of purpose in our own. The Stoics believed that by helping others, we ultimately help ourselves. Seneca noted, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." Even digital interactions hold opportunities for philanthropy in today's world. Sending an encouraging message to a friend or sharing content that uplifts others can create a sense of connection, even across distances. The key is to approach these actions with genuine care and intention, rather than seeking attention or validation in return. The very act of giving, no matter the form, reminds us of our interconnectedness. It counters the illusion that we are alone in the world by affirming that we are part of a larger whole. This shift in focus from our loneliness to the needs of others creates a profound emotional shift. When we help someone, we rewire our minds to see the world as a place of opportunity and connection rather than isolation and despair. Finally, it's important to remember that philanthropy doesn't always require external actions. Cultivating compassion in your thoughts and the way you perceive others is equally important. Practice seeing the people around you as fellow travelers on the journey of life, all navigating their own challenges. Even when you're alone or unable to directly help someone, this mindset fosters a sense of unity with the broader human experience. By practicing service, whether through small daily acts or larger commitments, we embody the Stoic principle that we are all part of one interconnected world. It's through these acts of giving and compassion that we bridge the gap of loneliness and discover that the path to inner peace often begins with an open hand. So as you go about your day, ask yourself, how can I serve? What small act of kindness can I offer to someone else? In answering those questions, you may find that the connection and sense of belonging you've been seeking have been within your reach all along. The Stoics firmly believed in the power of inner dialogue as a tool to navigate life's challenges and find peace within ourselves. To them, the conversations we have with our own minds were not just background noise, they were the foundation of how we interpret and respond to the world around us. Marcus Aurelius, in his private journal, expressed this wisdom countless times. One of his most famous reflections reads, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. This simple yet profound idea highlights the Stoic emphasis on taking control of our internal narratives, not to suppress emotions or silence our struggles, but to guide ourselves toward clarity, resilience, and purpose. Inner dialogue in the Stoic tradition is about examining our thoughts, challenging negative patterns, and grounding ourselves in truth and virtue. It's a way of stepping back from the immediate chaos of life and asking ourselves meaningful questions. Am I seeing this situation clearly? Are my thoughts helping or harming me? How can I respond with wisdom and virtue? The Stoics saw this practice as a discipline, a daily habit of turning inward to align our mindsets with what truly matters. By engaging in this internal conversation with honesty and intention, we can temper the racing impulses of the mind and replace them with calm, reasoned reflection. Cultivating constructive inner dialogue starts with awareness. Most of us let our thoughts run on autopilot, rarely pausing to question their accuracy or usefulness. But the Stoics teach us to become active participants in our internal conversations. The next time you catch yourself spiraling into self-doubt, frustration, or fear, pause and ask yourself, is this thought based on fact or am I jumping to conclusions? Is it within my control or am I worrying about something I can't change? This process, though simple, shifts the focus from reacting to reflecting. It puts you back in the driver's seat, reminding you that you always have the power to choose your response. One effective way to nurture a Stoic inner dialogue is to use journaling as a tool for reflection. Marcus Aurelius himself filled his journal with questions and reminders, many of which have become timeless Stoic teachings. You can adopt a similar practice by dedicating a few minutes each day to writing down your thoughts, challenges, and responses. For example, you might reflect on a difficult situation you faced and ask yourself, did I act in alignment with my values today? How could I handle this better next time? This practice not only helps you strengthen your inner voice, but also allows you to track your growth over time. Another strategy is to incorporate Stoic mindfulness into your daily routine. Take a moment at the start or end of your day to engage in a quiet conversation with yourself. During this time, think about the kind of person you want to be and how you're living up to that standard. Remind yourself of the principles you want to embody: patience, kindness, courage, or self-discipline. For instance, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you might say to yourself, let me focus only on what is within my control. I'll let go of the rest. These small but deliberate statements can help redirect your mind toward purpose and alignment. The beauty of inner dialogue lies in its accessibility. It's a tool available to us at all times in any situation. When faced with a difficult decision, a moment of self-doubt, or even a quiet stretch of loneliness, your inner voice can be the compass that guides you back to balance. And the more you practice this constructive dialogue, the stronger and more reliable that voice becomes. Over time, it evolves from a critical or chaotic chatter into a steady source of support and wisdom. As Marcus Aurelius demonstrates, maintaining a stoic inner dialogue isn't about silencing your emotions or glossing over challenges. It's about meeting them head-on with clarity and courage. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, he wrote, and by cultivating thoughtful, constructive inner conversations, we can transform the way we experience the world. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed or uncertain, pause and engage in that inner dialogue. In doing so, you may just find the guidance and peace you've been seeking was within you all along. One of the most pervasive challenges tied to loneliness is the fear of being alone. It's a fear that creeps into our thoughts, persuading us that solitude is something to dread, to avoid at all costs. But the Stoics approached fear as they approached all emotional struggles, not as something to run from, but as an opportunity to grow through understanding and reason. They believed that by confronting our fears head-on, examining them through rational analysis and reframing our perspective, we could dissolve their power over us. Let's start with a key Stoic technique, rational analysis. The fear of being alone often stems from exaggerated or unexamined beliefs. We tell ourselves things like, if I'm alone, it means I've failed, or if no one wants to share my time, then I must not be worthy. The Stoics would challenge us to step back and ask, are these thoughts grounded in truth, or are they just assumptions? Epictetus taught that most suffering comes not from the situation itself, but from the judgments we place upon it. By examining these judgments, we can begin to see them for what they are: mental constructs, not facts. Take a moment to reflect. What is it about being alone that frightens you the most? Is it the idea of feeling unloved, unimportant, or forgotten? Once you've identified the specific fear, ask yourself, is this fear rational? Can I be worthy, loved, or fulfilled without constant companionship? Often, when we pause to analyze our fear, we uncover distortions in our thinking beliefs that don't hold up to scrutiny. For example, being alone doesn't mean you're unloved. It means you're simply in a moment of solitude, which is a natural and inevitable part of life. This brings us to another Stoic practice, reframing. Instead of viewing solitude as something to escape, the Stoics invite us to see it as an opportunity, a time for reflection, growth, and self-discovery. Marcus Aurelius, who carried the immense weight of ruling an empire, often turned to solitude as a source of strength. He saw it as a chance to reconnect with himself, to deepen his understanding of life, and to align with his values. He wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." What if you could shift your perspective in the same way? What if, instead of fearing solitude, you began to view it as a gift, a moment to focus on your own well-being and inner peace? One powerful way to reframe your perspective is through gratitude for the benefits of solitude. In solitude, there are no external distractions pulling you in different directions. It's a time to reflect on your goals, your values, and your aspirations. It's a chance to nurture your creativity, to explore new interests, or to simply sit quietly and rest. When we embrace solitude, we create space for growth, clarity, and even joy. It's not about isolating ourselves from the world. It's about developing a stronger connection with ourselves so that we can engage with others more authentically. To help you apply these ideas, here's a reflective prompt. How do you currently view solitude? Do you see it as loneliness, or do you see it as an opportunity to grow closer to yourself? Imagine for a moment what your life might look like if you stopped fearing alone time and began to welcome it. What could you learn about yourself? What could you achieve with this time? These are the kinds of questions the Stoics would ask of themselves, challenging their assumptions and using reason to uncover a more empowering truth. Ultimately, the fear of being alone is not something we have to carry forever. By applying Stoic techniques like rational analysis and reframing, we can confront this fear and transform how we experience solitude. The Stoics teach us that we are enough as we are. Our time alone is not something to survive, it's something to embrace, to cherish, and to use as a foundation for becoming our best selves. So the next time this fear arises, pause, reflect, and remind yourself, solitude is not an absence, it's an opportunity. Contentment, the Stoics believed, isn't something we stumble upon by luck or achieve through external circumstances. It's a choice, an intentional practice of accepting and appreciating the present moment for exactly what it is, without yearning for more or clinging to what we don't have. In a world that often pressures us to chase the next goal, the next possession, or the next experience, the Stoic approach to contentment offers a powerful alternative: the ability to let go of unnecessary desires and find peace in simply being *. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This quote reminds us that the roots of contentment don't lie in external things like wealth, status, or even other people's approval. Instead, they lie in our perception of the present moment and our ability to focus on what we have rather than what we lack. Think of how much of our unhappiness comes from wanting something different than what we already have. It might be wishing for a better job, more recognition, or a different set of circumstances. While ambition and growth are healthy, the Stoics warned against tying our happiness to outcomes beyond our control. When we fixate on what is missing, we perpetually push contentment out of reach, convincing ourselves that it will only arrive after we achieve or acquire something else. But in reality, contentment is always within our grasp. It begins the moment we choose to accept life as it is and appreciate what's already before us. So how can we begin to practice contentment intentionally? Start by grounding yourself in the present moment. One of the biggest barriers to contentment is the mind's tendency to dwell in the past or project into the future. We replay regrets, anticipate worst-case scenarios, or chase after future milestones, all while overlooking the richness of this very moment. The Stoics teach us to focus on now. Take a breath, look around you, ask yourself, what is good about this moment? Maybe it's the sunlight streaming through the window, the cup of tea in your hands, or the simple fact that you're alive and breathing. These small observations have a way of dissolving the noise of discontent and bringing us back to what truly matters. Another powerful practice is to let go of desires for what is unnecessary. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that much of what we covet or worry about is irrelevant to our happiness. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Reflect on how much time and energy we often pour into pursuing things that, upon reflection, may not bring lasting fulfillment, be it material possessions, fleeting pleasures, or the approval of others. The Stoic approach to contentment is about simplifying, focusing on what truly adds value to your life and releasing the rest. Gratitude is another cornerstone of practicing contentment. Taking time to acknowledge the things you're grateful for can shift your mindset from scarcity to abundance. Consider beginning or ending each day by identifying a few things you appreciate. It could be as simple as a kind word someone offered, the food you enjoyed, or the effort you put into your work. Gratitude trains the mind to notice what's right in your life, rather than fixating on what's missing. Finally, remind yourself that contentment is not complacency. Accepting the present moment doesn't mean you stop striving for growth or improvement. It means you do so from a place of peace rather than from dissatisfaction. The Stoics didn't advocate passivity, they encouraged action rooted in intention and wisdom. When you choose contentment, you free yourself from the endless chase and create space to focus on what truly aligns with your values. The next time you find yourself caught in a web of desires or if only thoughts, pause and ask yourself, what is unnecessary here? What can I appreciate about this moment instead? Practicing contentment may not come naturally at first, especially in a world that constantly pushes us toward more. But with time and intention, it becomes a habit, one that transforms how you experience your life. As the Stoics teach, happiness isn't something to chase, it's something to choose. As we bring everything together, let's take a moment to reflect on the powerful Stoic principles we've explored, tools that not only help us navigate loneliness but lead us toward a deeper sense of inner peace. The Stoics teach us that the root of much of our emotional pain lies not in the circumstances we face, but in how we perceive and respond to those circumstances. By embracing acceptance, focusing on virtue, and practicing gratitude, we cultivate a mindset that moves us beyond loneliness and toward lasting resilience and contentment. Acceptance, as the Stoics emphasized, is about understanding what lies within our control and what does not. Loneliness often feels like a force beyond our control, but when we stop resisting it and instead accept it as part of the human experience, we regain our power. This acceptance allows us to focus our energy where it truly matters, on how we respond, how we grow, and how we choose to engage with both ourselves and the world. Living in alignment with virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline is another cornerstone of the Stoic approach to overcoming loneliness. When we root our actions in these values, we shift our focus from what we lack externally to what we can cultivate internally. Virtue gives us purpose and strengthens our connection to ourselves and the greater human community. It reminds us that a meaningful life isn't about what we receive, but about how we show up, how we contribute, and how we treat others. And then there's gratitude, which is perhaps the simplest yet most transformative practice of all. The Stoics remind us that contentment begins by appreciating what we already have. Gratitude shifts our mindset from a place of scarcity to abundance, helping us see the beauty and blessings in our lives even during moments of solitude. It's through gratitude that we begin to realize that we are enough, that life is enough precisely as it is. Together, these principles create a foundation for inner peace. They empower us to meet loneliness not with fear or resistance, but with strength, clarity, and an open heart. They remind us that while we cannot always control the presence of others in our lives, we can always cultivate a strong, meaningful connection with ourselves. As we close, let's return to the timeless words of Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This quote beautifully encapsulates the Stoic philosophy. It's not about changing the world around us, it's about transforming how we see and respond to it. So, how might you begin applying these Stoic principles in your own life? What steps can you take today to practice acceptance, live with virtue, or cultivate gratitude? Take a moment to reflect on these questions. They may just offer the first step toward the inner peace you're seeking. Thank you for joining me on this journey into Stoic wisdom. If you found this video helpful, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and explore more ways that Stoicism can transform the way you live, think, and connect. Together, let's continue learning how to find clarity, purpose, and peace, no matter what life brings our way. See you in the next